Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is director Mark Kemble and author Jacqueline Winspear. Director, playwright Mark Kemble was born and raised in Rhode Island. He went to Colgate University and Providence College. You finished with a degree in English, or you majored in English. Were you going to write then?
Well, I wrote since I was a kid, really. I used to write short stories and read them to my mom when she was ironing my clothes for school.
You're kidding, really?
Yeah, she laughed in all the right places, so I figured maybe I should write some more.
Good audience.
Yeah, she was a great audience. You know, it's interesting you say that, because if she were not a good audience, I don't think I would have pursued it as much.
So she was very encouraging.
She laughed, which was...
But the funny thing is, you went on to do things that were not laughable.
Well, yes, well, sometimes, yes. But she was very encouraging, yeah.
The one big thing, I think, that maybe put you on the map was Names,
yes,
which was about the Hollywood blacklist.
Yes.
And it seems that all of the things that you've written or that you've been associated with are socially, have a social message to them.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, I don't think I get up in the morning and say I'm going to write that kind of stuff. What happens, though, Joan, over the years when you write, and I've been doing it, I guess, 25 years now, certain things stay with you or they don't. And certain projects get under your skin, and things that have social relevance get under my skin, so I stay with them, because it takes a long time to get to the finish line when you're writing something.
Well, you started with Names in, what, 95?
No, actually, I started writing Names in 1980.
Oh, you did?
But
and then it got...
It was produced in 1995.
Oh, so it does take a long time. Do you keep changing things, or do they...
Yeah, sure. New research comes in, but also at the same time, you know, it doesn't have to take 15 years.
But but it went off Broadway. It started here.
It started at the Matrix in Los Angeles, then it went off Broadway at the American Jewish Theater very successfully. Then it came back and revived 2 years ago at the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute. Adam Davidson directed that production. And
Adam Davidson won an Academy Award.
He did, for Best Short Film, right? Lunch Date. I think Lunch Date was
And
called.
is that how you got him to direct your piece?
No, I directed the first. I directed Names at the Matrix in '95 and also in New York City. And then when it got revived, I like directing my shows, the first productions of my shows. But then again, after that, the revivals I give to other directors. He came recommended by David Strasberg, so I didn't know Adam before that. Yeah.
But Adam's father is a director.
Oh, Gordon Davidson, yes, of course.
And then you went on to work, or were you working with Gordon at the time at
the
Taper?
I was at the Taper in I think 91 to 93, under the what's called the Mental Playwrights program, the inaugural program. Oscar Eustace ran that, who now runs Trinity Square in Providence, Rhode Island. And it was 10 writers chosen to work for 2 years with great playwrights who came and taught us and mentored us.
But that was a great program, wasn't it?
Fantastic for me, because it was 4 times a week, 5 hours a day. It was very, very intense.
And what did they do with you?
Well, it depends. What would happen is every week or two we'd get a different playwright to come through, and they would teach us, not teach us writing, but they would run us through exercises and talk about writing from their point of view.
And then you wrote...
And then we would write. We would write every day. Yeah, right.
So Names actually came way before that.
Oh, yes.
And then it's being made into a film, I understand.
It is now, yes. Gene Dumanian in New York City, who produced quite a few Woody Allen films and also produced The Spanish Prisoner, got the rights to it.
David Mamet?
Yes. Got the rights to it and is producing it as a feature film. I wrote the screenplay for it, yeah.
Do you keep your little fingers in there? Are you there watching what's going on?
You mean when it's actually produced? Well, it's not in production, but I've made co-produced and co-written 2 films, independent films, and those 2 films I was there from the idea through distribution. But when a script is bought from you, it's less likely that you're included in that way. So I mean, you're asked questions and you're given some lip service prominence, but it's their ball to run with, you know.
Is that what happens?
Well, the director in film gets a hold of it. It has to be his thing or her thing, yeah.
We talked about social relevance. One of the things was a film that did you write it, Facing Fear?
Facing Fear was a family film, but Race was a political satire. That was more socially relevant. It was about a city council race in Los Angeles between a black CCH pounder and a Latino, Paul Rodriguez, and they have to get the white vote to win, who was Cliff Robertson at the time. That was a cable film for HBO.
And then Snow Soldiers?
Snow Soldiers is a feature film that we've just completed and put out. It's in development as a major feature film. It's about the 10th Mountain Division in World War II, this elite group of bright kids from the northern schools who could ski, and they made into an elite group and had to get the Nazis out of the Italian mountains at the end of the war.
Do you go to those areas when you're writing?
Well, sure. I mean,
did you go to the mountain?
We didn't go to Italy, no, but we went to Colorado, where there's a museum dedicated to the 10th Mountain Division. A really great group of people who actually had the highest casualty rate per capita in World War II. They had to go up the mountains in Italy at the end of the war and get the Germans out of there.
And then how would you come across something like that? Did someone tell you?
Well, it's interesting. No, my partner, Tom Muska, who wrote and produced Stand and Deliver, among other things, happened to be at a film festival in Colorado and saw the museum there. I said, what an interesting story.
Oh, he just went to the museum?
They just happened to see the museum. He said, this would be an interesting story. So 3 years later, we have the script.
So it was an interesting story.
Yeah.
The other thing, you did Disputation. You
Right.
wrote a stage adaptation. What is
Right.
that? What's the
Well,
difference?
it's strange because usually a play will go to film. But in this case, it was a one-hour...
When a play goes to film,
A play will
and
go
then
to film.
Do you write it, or does somebody else take it over once you've written your play?
It depends. If they want you to write it, you write it. If they don't want you to write it, well, I've always written any kind of
So that's your
thing.
screen adaptation, is that right?
Well, no, the Disputation was the opposite. It was a one-hour Channel 4 film written by Chaim Maccabee, a Jewish scholar, and I made it into a 2-hour play.
Oh, you made it into a play?
2-hour play, right, which ran Los Angeles, London, and New York.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's totally...
It's just the opposite, yeah, of how it usually goes, yes, yeah.
Now, we're talking about your directing. Have you directed films?
I haven't directed film. I'm directing my first film in the next 12 months, something I've written. In Providence, Rhode Island, we'll be shooting.
But...
I've directed plays, yes.
Yeah,
but,
you've directed plays, I know, because I've
Yes.
seen some of the work you've done. Right now, at the Strasbourg Theater, we have A Comfortable Truth.
Yes.
A story of a boy and his priest.
Yes.
And that's extremely volatile.
Yes, it is, yeah, yeah.
I think that your direction has been incredible. Tell
You
us.
saw the show, yes,
I
yeah,
saw the show,
yeah.
and I saw the way you moved people around,
Yeah.
and there's a lot. Well, how many? 4 or 5 people on stage?
There's 11, actually.
Is there?
Well, because there's 6 altar boys.
Oh, I forgot about
Right.
them. They're always coming and
Yes, that's
going. I
right.
forgot about them because
there's
the main
the
characters
5
are
leads, yes,
so
right.
strong. There are
Yes,
5 people,
yeah.
and then Juan Carlos Malpelli did the
Beautiful set, incredible set. Yes.
So you really feel like there's a huge stage.
Yes.
And
yeah.
all this action going
It's
on.
true, yes.
So
yeah.
how'd you do it?
Well, how do you do something like that? Well, we got long rehearsal time. I did script
Do you?
development. I got script development with the actors because I was also writing, of course, writing and directing, so I needed a lot of time. And I had a great cast. I mean, you can't beat a cast of great professionals like Alan Blumenfeld, Paul Lieber, Shireen Mitchell, Zach Graham,
Greg Malavey.
Greg Malavey. How can you forget Greg
No,
Malavey?
he
He's
was
fantastic.
so
yeah.
great.
He's fantastic, yeah. And it's a very dicey subject about a priest who not only molests a young boy, but actually seduces the mother and father also.
I saw it, and I've read these stories, and
Yes.
I know how emotional they are.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was so much emotion. I felt like you put everything into that one family.
Yeah.
Have those situations actually?
Well, let me
been
tell you what
like
happened.
that?
I've talked with SNAP people. These are Survivors Network of those abused by priests. And there was one woman who was molested by a priest. I'm sorry, one man who was molested by his priest, and his mother was molested by a different priest.
Oh, so I see.
So I metaphorically pulled it all together that it actually happened on November 22nd, 1963, the day Kennedy was shot. He molested all 3 of them in one day.
And also that had so much to do with the Catholic
Yes,
feeling
that's
and the
right.
reverence.
And the loss of innocence in our country at that time, the loss of
Right.
innocence because of this pedophilia and stuff. So there
Right.
was sort of a conscious image choice on that kind of thing. Yeah.
What style of directing do you use? I mean, would you direct another play the same way that you
No, of
directed
course not. No,
this?
no. I directed Names, and Names is a very conventional sort of setting. It's a hotel room at the Algonquin Hotel, and there's certain things you can do. The reason I directed this and I wrote it the way I wrote it in a sort of a surreal sort of thing. There's no real place. The time is 63 in 1974, but the place is really in your imagination. It's an oddball kind of place. So you have room to play around theatrically, which I wanted to do with the altar boys, the chorus, and stuff like this.
Because they're moving. They're almost like narrators.
They are. They're witnesses and narrators, and
witnesses.
Yeah, they're witnesses to the events, and they're the abused children. And I wanted to implement them, and I wanted to also have a continual flowing of events from '63 to 1974 without any. I didn't want a conventional situation where you have a psychiatrist's office and there's books on the wall and maybe people come in, they knock on the door, they say, "I'm here for my therapy."
That's why
it's boring to me.
That's why the set was so good.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yes. It looks like some kind of odd train trestle, bombed out church kind of.
Yeah, it was very
thing.
bombed out.
Yeah,
There's like
yeah.
piles of trash
and stuff. And,
and the way the clothesline came down.
The clothesline slipped down. Yeah, altar boys up in the rafters dropping snow when it was supposed to be snowing.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Was that all your idea?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well,
who else could it be? I wrote it and directed it.
I don't know. It's just like you sit there and you go, how could all this be happening? Because a lot was happening on stage.
It is a lot. It is a lot going on, yes. Right,
How could it be anybody else? I don't know. I'm going, look, sawdust. They're sawing and sawdust is coming down.
I know it. Yeah.
But one of the things is the psychiatrist seemed, he didn't have the major role, but he seemed like he was in the major role.
Well, because he's on stage most of the time.
Is that?
Yeah, that's what it is really. And at the same time, you have a guy who really wants to find out the truth of the situation. But often in life, you will find, and even very bright people, that they're hired to find out the truth of the matter, but they bring their own truth to it. They're looking to really prove what they already believe rather than to find new evidence of something. And he was hired by the church to find out.
I was just going to say that.
And he was also Catholic himself, and he wanted to find out the truth, but he was resisting finding out the truth at the same time.
But then you wrote it so that everybody could find a comfort in what was happening.
Well, you hoped, yeah. I mean,
you hoped.
Yeah.
I mean, it was supposed to be.
It was supposed to be, but it was very uncomfortable, of course, at the end.
It was very uncomfortable.
Yes.
But the other thing is, once they have to face the truth, that becomes very uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable.
And I spoke to Shireen Mitchell, who is the one
played Mrs. Gordon. Yes,
plays Mrs. Gordon, and the play is dedicated
to
her.
Pamela Gordon, an actress who died a year ago, a very good friend of mine who was a great theater actress in Los Angeles.
Oh.
She helped me develop this play over the years.
So you made her the title.
I gave her the name because in future productions it'll always be Pamela Gordon, which I wanted to dedicate that to her.
Oh, that's wonderful. I wondered why that was the dedication. But also Shireen said when she finished, she's so exhausted.
Yeah, she is, yeah.
And I would imagine everyone else is exhausted.
Yeah, they are. It's an exhausting emotional play because, she has a whole scene there where she's under hypnosis and she comes to terms with this molesting of her child, and the child told her he was being molested, and she has that guilt, and she was also molested by the priest. She has that guilt.
Which she never divulged to anyone, and then all of a
sudden
it all comes out.
Exactly, and the husband was also involved with the priest, and he never divulges that. So, it's a very difficult play for actors to engage in because it really takes every inch of their talent and their emotional investment. Yeah.
Do you have to be there every night?
I don't have to be, but I am for the most part.
Are you?
Yeah.
Do you rework things as the play is going along?
I try to rework things, but you have to understand that I rewrote many times during the rehearsal process, and the poor actors had to keep on relearning their cues. So I wanted to run for about 2 or 3 more weeks. When we extend, I'll take about a week break, and I'll do some rewrites on it.
And then, as your other plays, do you think it'll go to Broadway?
I don't know. I'm going to go to Providence, Rhode Island, and do it first, probably. Maybe even London, and then New York. So that I hope to do because I have a network developed in Providence and London. So we'll see.
You still have close ties to Providence? You went to school there, you were born there, you live
I've
there,
been
you still have that accent.
Is it really still there? That's
still there.
Let me tell you, it's not really as much as as it could be, because most of the time it's more like over here like this, here like that, there. It's more up in the nose.
When you go home, do they talk like that?
It's very fast, it's very up there like that there, so it's like, oh my God.
But also, if you had a little bit more Irish accent, you'd look like Gabriel Byrne.
Yeah, I am sometimes. Well, it's better than looking like Bozo the Clown, I guess. But I am.
It's good.
I'm also Black Irish. He's Black Irish, so we share that, the nose and the forehead and the hair. So
and the eyes.
And the eyes. So his eyes are blue. That's not so bad. It's funny. I was in the airport one time when a woman came up to me and she said, "Kaiser Soze." I said, "What are you talking about?" I had not seen The Usual Suspects. She goes, "Come on, this is just."
That's all she could remember,
this
right?
This is just after I had a very difficult time in New York developing a different play, and I was on the plane back to Los Angeles. I was feeling like crap, and she said, "Kaiser Soze, you're Gabriel." She said, "You're Gabriel Byrne, the actor." I said, "No, I'm Mark Kemble, the tormented."
I'm so
There's
tormented.
a big difference.
We're going to let you go with that torment. and I know it's so great that you can laugh about all this stuff.
Gosh, yeah, what can you do? I mean, we're not curing cancer here, right? We're entertaining and maybe getting a little art out there.
And you certainly are. Thanks, Mark.
I appreciate it, Joan.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark
you.
Kemble. And don't go away. We'll be right back with author Jacqueline Winspear, who wrote, here we have it, Maisie Dobbs. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with author Jacqueline Winspear, who was born and raised in Kent, England. She studied at Cranbrook, the University of London Institute of Education, and in England she worked in publishing and marketing. But Jackie came to the U.S. in 1990 and started writing. But did you start publishing first? Were you working in publishing here?
Yes, I was actually, and in fact, even in the UK, I was working in publishing for a US company. But,
oh, you were?
Yeah, but I wasn't in the glamorous side of publishing. I worked in academic publishing, which for universities, colleges, and so on. So it's very different.
So
really
textbooks?
Textbooks, textbooks, software, that kind of thing.
Really?
Yes, yes.
For a long time?
Yes, quite a long time.
And then something in your bio said when you came here was personal and business coaching. What was that?
Yeah, well, I have a business background, obviously, working in publishing. I'd also worked in education in England, sort of bringing that together, and marketing in education. So when I first came here, I worked in publishing.
Did the publisher bring you here?
No,
or why did you come?
Why did I come? Because I wanted to change. I wanted to live in America. And so I came
Don't
here.
we all?
Yeah, my brother was living here, and I thought, I'll give it a whirl. And I had been here a lot, though.
And you actually moved to a writer's community, a very artsy community in Ojai, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We haven't lived there that long, though. We've lived there about a year now.
Oh, but don't you find it?
It's a very artistic community, very creative.
It's on the edge,
very
kind
creative.
of, I think. I love
lots of
when
artists.
you feel like there's really some energy going on.
Oh, there's definitely energy going on.
So but go on, the consulting, because I thought maybe you were a trainer.
As in
a coach, like at the gym.
Oh, I need one of those. No, it was something that I sort of went into round about 1995. At the same time as I was really doing my writing.
Well, how does one?
It's to do with working with people basically to make their. I know this sounds really sort of airy-fairy, but to make their dreams come true.
Is that right? That's what a coach was doing?
Yes, kind of. That's
coach?
one way of putting it, yeah.
Well, then who coached you to make your dream come true? You wanted to be a writer, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was the little thing on my shoulder that was nagging me. It's what I wanted to do all my life. And I have always, like a lot of people, I've always written. But I had never struck out to be a writer,
So how does a writer become a writer? As close to publishing as you were.
And that can be a big turn-off because you see the other side of the business, and you think that's never going to happen to me. Well, let me just quote one of my friends that when I told her that, what I really want to do is be a writer, and she said, well, you know what you've got to do, don't you, Jackie? And I said, well, what's that? And she said, you've got to sit your behind on a chair and stick your fingers on a typewriter, and you have to write.
If you're going to be a writer.
If you're going to be a writer. And what that means is you do have to write. You have to show up at the page every single day.
How do you physically write? Do you sit at a computer, or do you
I use a laptop, but sometimes when I'm just sort of working out ideas, I'll write longhand. And I know this sounds funny, but I love writing with fountain pens. So I use different pens and things, that and... I like the nice grip of a big pen.
And so, and you're actually putting something there yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to write.
Yes.
So when you started writing, did you start writing your first novel, Maisie Dobbs?
No.
Oh,
I actually, when I really got serious about writing and wanting to be published, I knew that I had to go for sort of a niche that I knew something about. So I started writing on international education.
Oh, is that right?
And I still write on assignment for some magazines on that very subject.
Oh, is it a little boring?
International education? Actually, it might sound dry, but it's not actually.
It's so different from what Maisie does.
I know it is. It's interesting. I get to talk to some interesting people.
That's it.
Yeah,
That is.
and I've also written a lot of personal essays and had, I started to
like
really
opinion
branch out.
pages from the opinion
More
pages?
sort of first person type, but and had some pieces recorded for actually KQED radio in San Francisco, that kind of thing. Maisie was actually my first ever fiction.
Oh.
I'd never written fiction before.
Yes, but you take Maisie, you put her, Maisie Dobbs, you put her in a period, so you really had to create a world for her. It wasn't something you were familiar with.
No, definitely not. It was creating her world, and I suppose in a way, creating Maisie and her world almost brought together, dare I say, a perfect storm for me, in that I'd always been interested in that era, the 1920s, 1930s.
And then you flash back to even earlier.
World War I, yes. It's that the roots of the mystery are in World War I, and I do have an interest in that as well.
And then how about writing a mystery, from education writing to a mystery?
Yeah, that was interesting, but I always knew it was going to be a mystery.
Oh, you did?
Yes, absolutely. It was just there was too many questions, so it had to be a mystery.
The thing with the wonderful thing is that you were just nominated for an Edgar Award,
That's correct.
which is a Mystery Writers Award. I mean, that's one of the top things a mystery writer can get.
I know.
And here you are, starting out with Maisie Dobbs and taking her back to World War I. And why should we like her?
Why should you like her? Well, here's why people tell me they like her. That she is very engaging. She's like a lot of people we know. She has those same questions. She has a lot of questions that are not like anybody that we know. But she's been through things that people go through. She has seen tragedy. She has had to overcome something to get an education, to be where she is today. And I think a lot of people really identify with that yearning, that longing.
That got to that point, her education and her self-didactic. She was a self-didact, I guess, and then somebody helped her.
She had a mentor. She had a couple of mentors.
And then she gets to this really interesting job, like a sleuth. I mean, like a private investigator.
Well, it didn't just sort of come out of the blue as if you will, an advertisement. Her mentor, a very interesting man. He's a philosopher, a doctor. He's a doctor of forensic science, and he had that was his work.
Did you know this doctor?
Did anyone like him? No, I've never met anyone like him.
I just wonder, because all these characters are so well defined. Did you go back to England to?
Yes, I did.
I wondered if your research started.
I went a couple of times to the Imperial War Museum in London.
Oh yeah,
and they have
across the river, right?
Yeah, that's across the river, across the water. And
not very far, but it is great. Yeah.
It is. It's in Lambeth. And it is, actually, I don't know, not a lot of people know this, but it's actually housed in the building that was the original Bedlam lunatic asylum.
Oh, it was?
You know, the Bethlem. It was obviously shortened to Bedlam. And now the archives are actually in what was the chapel. And they have an amazing archive there of letters, documents, pertaining not only to the world wars, but other wars. And it is an amazing resource for a writer of that period. So I spent a couple of days there, and I also walked every single street that Maisie had to walk in London, because it wasn't any good me getting a map, because London changed dramatically in the Blitz.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Because things were, I mean, you had to be living during that period. I mean, you wrote during that period.
Yes, exactly.
Did you find magazine articles, or did you find different things that actually put you in those places?
I drew upon my parents' memories, actually. They were kids, children before the war, but they remembered a lot of, this road went to that road, and this was originally called that, because, after the bombing, when roads were rebuilt, it didn't look like it did before the war, put it like that. I'm
going to hold this up because this was on the bestseller list, San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles.
That's right.
And it's really great reading and easy. It's like you want to just keep reading once you do it. But you've written another book about Maisie. You're doing a series
That's right.
of things, and
Yeah.
so Maisie's a perfect person as a investigator because she can have all kinds of stories. Will you take her all around the world, or will you keep her in England?
I don't know that. I don't think I'll take her all around the world, but she. In the next book, she's going to cross the channel. Book number 3 that I'm working on at the moment, she's going to cross the channel.
What does she do in this book?
She's mainly she's in England. She's in London and in Kent and also in Sussex, in the town of Hastings.
What's the name of this one?
Birds of a Feather. And in this book,
it's still in the 20s, though, right?
This is actually in 1930.
So
yeah.
Can we make her old? Can we age her as she goes along?
We'll see. She is getting older. This again has its roots in World War I, and that is a hallmark of the series. That there is a.
Is it going to continue
that? Yeah. The roots of the mystery are in World War I, and that is in fact Maisie's challenge, because she has memories of that time because she was a nurse in World War I, and that keeps coming back almost to haunt her, if you will.
Oh, so no matter what she takes on as a client, there's going to be some most probably some little relationship to it, to that time. You know, all world wars take a long time to get over, and I think that's one of the things that shows up in Maisie Dobbs's work. Is this published in England?
It's being published in the United Kingdom this year.
Oh.
Maisie Dobbs, yeah.
And will you go do some press for it?
Most probably. They don't go in for big author tours like they do here in the US, but I'll definitely be going to England at the time of publication. Oh yeah, I wouldn't miss it.
I know. That's so exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, we're really happy that you came to see us today.
Thank you.
And we love, I started reading it last night and I was going, oh, this is no wonder this is so exciting. And then when she goes back into like 1917 and you follow around in this huge house where she lived. It's very...
She's a very unusual character, and certainly I'm finding out more about her all the time.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Jacqueline Winspear, and thank you all for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles, 917. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.